Welcome back. I'm Ryan from Bluewood Gaming, and today I'm taking a look at a new battle royale that has just released on Steam. It is Ring of Elysium. Now, I've covered quite a few different battle royales this year, and so I'm not really gonna go into like the basic details of battle royales. I'm pretty much just going to focus on what makes Ring of Elysium a unique battle royale, and then I'll go into whether or not it is worth it to actually put some time into it and actually try to be good at it. So let's get right into this. Now, the big thing that sets Ring of Elysium apart from any other battle royale is that it is a Arctic-based battle royale, meaning the blue zone, instead of being just a normal blue zone like in every other game, it is a snowstorm that you have to get out of. There are special abilities that I'll talk about here in a minute that focus specifically on being in the cold and being on a mountain, and pretty much everything all goes into this kind of Arctic theme that they have going throughout the entirety of the game. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk my way through what a normal match is like, and then like go over all the things that are different from this to compare to like PUBG or Fortnite. So right when you start out, instead of being flown over the map like in every other battle royale, this is the first time where you actually get to choose where you spawn, or at least somewhat choose. There is a map that you get to see at the beginning, and this map has a bunch of tiny little squares in it. You get to choose which square you spawn in, and whenever you pick a specific square, there's a specific spot that you will spawn in at, and you will have been able to see that at the beginning of the video. And you get to see where everybody else spawns at, so you know if there's someone around you when you spawn, and you can kind of focus on different strategies around that. You can also choose what area of the map to spawn in, so you can spawn in the same place like every game and get really good at getting a bunch of gear from that specific spot. Once you pick a spot to spawn, you then select a pack, which dictates what your special ability is going to be and what weapons you start out with. So there's 3 different packs. There's a gliding pack, which has 3 bar mobility and 1 bar capacity, which means that you can move really quickly and kind of get around the place pretty well. But your backpack can only hold 250 pounds or 250 units worth of weight, which I'll go over how much that actually can hold here in a minute. And then you start out with a Glock, 15 rounds of 9mm ammo, and some bandages. And then you get to have a glider that you use whenever you are like in the air. You can activate it and you can just glide through the air. The next pack is the skiing pack, which doesn't actually give you a ski, it gives you a snowboard, but it has 2 bar mobility and 2 bar capacity. Starts you out with a 45 pistol. I don't remember which one it actually is. And then some 45 ammo, and then some bandages, and then there's the one that I like to choose, which is the climbing pack, which gives you rock climbing gear and a zip line set. It has 1 bar mobility and 3 bar capacity, which 3 bar capacity is 400 units of weight, which, like I said, I'll go into how much that is here next. But with this one, you start out with a shotgun shells, and bandages. And really, whichever pack you want to choose is mostly going to be dictated around what ability you want to use. I personally find the climbing pack to be really, really helpful. I also find the gliding pack to be somewhat helpful. Haven't put in as much time with the snowboard pack, but I can see where it can also be helpful. And actually using these abilities is some of the most fun that you can have in the game. I've seen people like spend a ton of time of their match just going around hang gliding or going around skiing, and that's actually just a fun addition to the game. So now let's go over how much you can actually carry. I said that with the lightest pack, you can carry 250 units of weight. Now, how much does that actually get you? So, 250 units will be about a moderate amount of healing. There's three different types of healing. There is the big kit, which I'm forgetting its name of right now. Then there's the med kit, which is like the normal med kit that you would think of in every other game. And then there's bandages. The big healing item instantly heals you to 100 health, but it takes like 7 or 8 seconds to do it. The med kit heals, I believe, 50% health. It's either 40 or 50% health, and it takes like 5 or so seconds. And the bandage heals, I believe, 10% health, and it takes like 3 seconds. And you can use those at any point. There's not like a special cutoff where, oh, you can't use a first aid kit past this point. Like in PUBG, you can't use a first aid kit to heal past like 70% of your health. Like 70-75% of your health. In this game, they don't have that. You can heal with a med kit all the way up to your max. So going back to the weight, if you have like a moderate amount of healing, say like 3 or so med kits and like 10-15 bandages, then you can have like a fully kitted gun and like a moderate amount of ammo for that. I'm saying like 150 or so rounds for that main weapon, and then a secondary weapon that is slightly kitted. Maybe it has a sight and like a barrel attachment, or like a magazine attachment, and then a pretty minuscule amount of ammo for that. I'm saying like 50 rounds or less for that second weapon, and that's essentially how much you can carry with the gliding pack with its small capacity. Then on the opposite end, you have the climbing pack that can hold 400 units of weight, and this allows you to carry a ton of stuff. There's actually 3 weapon slots in the game, and so you can have 3 primary weapons if you want. And with the climbing pack, you have plenty of weight to have 3 fully kitted weapons on you. Plenty of ammo for each. I'm talking 100 plus rounds for each gun. Your primary weapon, you could have 200, 300 rounds for that, and then still have plenty of ammo for your second and third weapon, and then still have plenty of room for, say, 2 of the big healing items, like 5 or so of the med kits, and like 30 bandages. So if you really like hoarding gear, the climbing pack with its huge capacity is definitely what you want to go for. Then once you spawn in, the first thing that you'll see is how fluid this game is. It has vaulting, it has the climbing, you can jump through windows, being like a crouch jump, just running around the place. Everything feels kind of smooth. Picking up items is slightly clunky, being pretty much the thing that you'll see with that is there'll be a group of items down on the ground, and you will pick up, say, the wrong item out of that group. It doesn't happen all the time, and thankfully loot is spread out enough that that usually won't be a problem, but that does happen occasionally. The next thing that you'll notice is how attachments work, and I wish every other Battle Royale did attachments like this game. So let's say you go around and you pick up, say, a red dot, a flash hider for an assault rifle, maybe you pick up a magazine, like an extended mag for an assault rifle, and then you finally pick up an assault rifle, whatever it happens to be, an AK, an M16, whatever. I'll talk about the guns here in a minute. But say you pick that up. You don't have to go into your inventory to put on all the attachments that you'd already picked up. It does it automatically for you. So all you have to do is load in a new mag, and boom, you have a fully kitted weapon just sitting there for you. You don't have to switch around or anything. And then say later on in the match, you want to swap out that weapon for something else. All you have to do is go into the menu and drag over whatever weapon you want to pick up to the slot that that kitted item is in, and it will immediately switch over all the attachments for you, so you don't have to sit there and swap them all out yourself. And I absolutely love that. Like, I didn't know how much time I spent in these other battle royales looking through the menu until I started playing this game. Because of how intuitive all this stuff is, it just works, and you don't have to open up your menu to actually mess with everything. And you don't even have to actually do that drag method for switching over all the attachments. If you have all three weapons and you pick up another one, the attachments will already be swapped over. And so that's just great. Granted, the menu is still there, so if you do need to mess with something, you can still do that. And essentially, the points when you need that is, say you pick up a replacement grip or something that you want to switch out on a weapon, then you'll do that. A replacement sight, things like that. And speaking of sights, this is actually the second battle royale that I know of that lets you hot swap sights. The first one of which was Islands of Nine, but we've seen how that game's progressed. But going back to this, you can attach two sights to a specific weapon, and then by pressing the V key, you can actually hot swap in between them. And pretty much any sight can be used on almost any weapon. You want to throw an 8 times on your assault rifle, go right ahead. You want to throw a red dot on a sniper rifle, go right ahead, and you can swap between them whenever you want by just hitting that one key, which is absolutely fantastic. And now let's talk about the weapons themselves. There's actually a bit that I have to say about the weapons. I do have to commend them for having some more of the unique weapons that you don't really see in other games. The MP5, for how common it is in just games as a whole, you don't really see it in battle royales, and they have it here. They also have a integrated suppressed version of the MP5, which I forget what the game calls it, but they also have one of those. The DMRs that this game has is actually kind of interesting. They have the G28, which is the 7.62 DMR. Essentially, it looks like a stretched out SCAR. They also have another one, which I'm forgetting its name, but it looks like a stretched out M16 to be like much longer than a regular one, and it is the 5.56 DMR. And then you have other things like the magazine-fed semi-automatic shotgun that they have in this game. I'm forgetting its name. There's also like some other guns that you really just don't see that often. Actually, the biggest one that comes to mind is the main assault rifle in this game. You would think that it's like an M16 or something, and this game does have an M16, but the go-to assault rifle, specifically the go-to 5.56 assault rifle that you will find in this game, is actually the Lavoa C, which you probably never heard of before. I actually can't think of another game where this gun makes an appearance. It is a special AR-15 made by one company in North Carolina. If you look at it, it looks kind of familiar. It just looks like an regular M4, but with an extended barrel shroud to cover the entire barrel, and it does look quite different, but this is really a gun that you don't see pretty much anywhere else. Actually, going to look it up, it has made its way into both Ghost Recon Wildlands and The Division, but those are the only other two games that have the Lavoa C in them. This game also has some more rare weapons that you really don't see that often, even in-game. Going back to one that we haven't seen in a long time, the Shaytak Intervention Sniper Rifle. You might remember this from way back in Modern Warfare 2, but this gun makes an appearance as a special supply drop only weapon. There's also a silenced bullpup sniper rifle that I've seen. I've actually never seen this weapon in game, but it apparently does make an appearance. I've seen gameplay of it, but even with my 20 hours of in-game experience, I've not run across this weapon once. So yeah, this game has some rare weapons that you can kind of find somewhere throughout it. Speaking of that, though, there is some downsides to the rarity of weapons in this game. They have this weird thing where they like to give guns with very specific ammo types. So, for the most common one that you'll find is the Desert Eagle. which has a special in-game ammo that is only used by the Desert Eagle. The Shaytak intervention that I was talking about earlier has a special ammo only used for it. The 45 ammo is only used for the very rare pistol and then the Vector submachine gun. There's also apparently some other like crate only weapons that have specific ammo to them as well. So you do have the common ammo types of the 7.62 and the 5.56 and the 9mm, which is essentially what you're going to run across every single game. But some of these more rare weapons have specific ammo that's really hard to find, which makes it so that you can't use these weapons all too often because you will just run out of ammo. When I picked up the intervention the one time, I got 15 rounds. That's it. I couldn't find any more. I actually went to other crates. They didn't have them. So, yeah, you really have to be kind of careful with how much you're shooting these guns. When you pick up a Desert Eagle, you might think, hey, it's a pistol. They might give you some extra ammo. Nope, you get like 20 bullets for that thing. Now let's talk about how the zone works, because the zone doesn't work like your popular games such as PUBG or Fortnite. In this game, the map is separated into different zones of varying sizes, and you'll be able to see the outlines of them on the map whenever you look. But as the game progresses, the outskirt zones are kind of marked in this alert color. It starts off as blue, then moves to yellow, and then red as time progresses. And that is like, hey, get out of this zone or else you're going to get hit by the blue zone, or this game's version of the blue zone called the ice zone. And so it doesn't have that like perfect circle that you see in other games. It can have some jagged edges, but essentially this allows the zone to not have like those awkward moments where you're stuck in the middle of nowhere with like no cover, because each zone is picked out for where its boundaries are. It kind of allows them to like dictate how the game is actually going to play out a bit better than just the random zones. And then once you get down to the final zone, like the first zone completely takes out most of the map except for 5 areas. Then after that, it takes down to, I believe, 2 or 3 areas, and then the final zone takes it down to 1 area. And then at that final zone, the area is split into fourths, and then you're separated down into that. It's kind of hard to explain, but you're seeing it play out in the background, so I hope that kind of helps. I do open up the map every time that there's a new zone change to kind of help illustrate it. But this allows the game to be much more dictated, and so you don't have bad zones. I have not once had a single bad zone in this entire time playing this game. And now we need to talk about how you're going to move from one zone to another. Now you can use your abilities, being the glider, the snowboard, or the climbing gear to get from one place to another. But there are also vehicles in this game, and the vehicles are well spread out. I've never been caught outside of a zone without a vehicle. So the different vehicles in this game are specialized for different things. There is a 2-seat buggy with an open roof that is meant for just speed on the road. There's, on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's a monster truck that is really slow, but it is specifically for climbing mountains. And it can go up pretty much any mountain. Like, it can be a 60-degree slope, and that monster truck will still just drive right up it. In the middle, you have things like Jeeps, which is a good all-terrain vehicle. It's good on the road. It's nice and fast. It's also pretty fast off the road. You then have things like a Volkswagen Bug, which is like specifically for roads. Like, it can also go off-road if it needs to, but it's not very good at all. Then you have like a truck, which is better off-road than it is on-road, but It's like just kind of a mid-range vehicle. And keeping with the winter theme, instead of motorcycles, this game has snowmobiles instead, which you can drive around. The cool thing is, on some of these vehicles, like the snowmobile and the hang glider, you can actually shoot while you're driving it. Granted, you are going to be horribly inaccurate, but it can be done, and it's kind of cool when you do pick up like a random kill from it. Speaking of kills, let's go into how combat actually works and the kind of nuances to combat. And I would actually say that the combat in this game feels like a mixture of both PUBG and of Fortnite. Like, you have rapid weapon swapping that you see in Fortnite, which essentially what you do is if you're looking at someone and you're really close range, you can almost like not even aim. You can just point the gun at them. Like, most of the weapons are accurate enough to do that. But if you hold down the click, it's just an over-the-shoulder aim instead of an actual like ADS, and you unload an entire clip into the general area where they are or into them. And if they're not dead, you just quickly switch to your second weapon, and you unload that entire clip. And then if they're still not dead and you have a third gun, then you switch to it, and so on and so forth, instead of sitting there and reloading. So it's kind of like that in terms of Fortnite, but then there's also the times where you're just sitting behind cover and like having sniping wars with people like you see in PUBG. This game also has a built-in auto lean, which means when you get up next to a surface, it will actually like put your character up against it with his back up against the like cover that you have, and then you'll see a little arrow next to your reticle, which indicates that you can lean around cover without exposing your entire body and actually shoot out if you want to. And that's just kind of a cool little thing. But now let's go into like the damage that weapons deal. If you hit every single one of your shots, you can kill someone in like 5 to 6 shots if they're wearing armor. Most of the time it actually is like a little bit of a fight, but you can kind of mow someone down with an assault rifle or an SMG. If you're using a pistol, it's going to be a bit more of a like drawn out fight. The most powerful pistol, being the Desert Eagle, still takes 4 shots to kill someone with armor. So if you're using a weaker pistol, it's gonna be a bit. The big downside to fighting is actually the sniper rifles and the DMRs. See, with a helmet, you're pretty much not going to get a one-shot anywhere on a person with sniper rifles or with DMRs. So you're just kind of screwed. You have to get several body shots, which really kind of sucks when you have a bolt action rifle. If you get headshots and they have a standard helmet, you can kind of get one-shot kills with the Mosin Nagant and the Remington 700 that are in the game, being the 2 main bolt-action weapons. But I really think that they need to up the damage that the sniper rifles do. Besides that, all the other weapons deal a good amount of damage. I don't feel that I'm getting killed too quickly, but the matches aren't taking forever like they did in the Call of Duty beta that we got to play just a little bit ago. Now, before we end this off, there's one last thing that I need to talk about, because it is actually kind of a problem with this game, the biggest like gripe that I have with it, and that is the final quarter of a zone that I talked about earlier. In this final quarter of a zone, this game does not actually have you kill everybody. No, what happens is a helicopter comes, which has 4 spots on it, and 4 people can escape the snowstorm that is the blue zone in this game. When you get down to that final quarter of a zone, you have a 3.5-minute timer before the actual storm gets there. At this point, the game just progresses like normal. You're trying to get a good position so that you can get to the helicopter or kill other people that try to get to the helicopter. The big problem comes when you're like getting close to the end of that timer. See, the helicopter actually gets to the spot that it's going for relatively quickly. I'm saying there's a good 2.5 minutes left on that final zone before by the time the helicopter gets there. So the helicopter's just sitting there for those 2.5 minutes. People are fighting over getting to the helicopter, getting into a good position, but really nobody's getting on the helicopter at this point because they're just going to get shot when climbing up to it because it requires a ladder climb to get up to it. The real problem comes, like I said, right at those final seconds because nobody moves. When the countdown timer gets to 0 and the storm gets there, the game does not end. It actually, you start taking blue zone damage, and it reveals the location of every player still alive. So this leads to people just camping out, and really, instead of fighting over the helicopter and who gets in the helicopter, you have people just sitting there, bandaging up all the time, trying to outlive the storm or fight the last couple of people. And these people will still try to fight you if you try to get on the helicopter. And in the footage that is in the background that showed for the game, there was 4 people left when the blue zone hit, when the storm actually was required to hit us. The helicopter will leave 9 minutes later, but no one's surviving an extra 9 minutes in this blue zone. But there was 4 of us. There's 4 seats on the helicopter. We could have all climbed on that helicopter and gotten out of there and all had a victory. But nobody wants to do that. No, what they're going to do is they're going to try to get into a better position or try to camp and wait for you to get into a different position, and then they're going to fight it out. And if you try to run for the helicopter, they're going to shoot you. And it just leads to this really terrible setup where everybody's just camping at the end, just camping and bandaging, trying to outlive the opponent without actually fighting for a spot on the helicopter. They'll just fight to survive, and then once they're the last person, then they'll go and climb up the helicopter. But I think that they need to rework the final zones. That instead of being stuck in the zone and showing off the location of everybody, I think that it needs to just not show the location of people and have the helicopter leave quite a bit sooner so that you can actually speed this up instead of having just a camping fest in the middle of a snowstorm. And that is pretty much everything that makes Ring of Elysium different from the other popular battle royales right now. Personally, I think that Ring of Elysium will do quite well. It is currently only released in Asia and in North America, and we're already seeing consistent numbers of 40 to 50,000 people every day. At a low point, it has upwards of 20,000 people playing it. So this is definitely not one of those battle royales that's going to die off in a month or two. I think that there's a solid enough base here that by the time that Ring of Elysium hits its full release and its 1.0 release, I think it's actually going to be pretty decent. And it also has the time to open up to the rest of the world, because we're definitely going to see player increases when they open up to places like Asia and South America and Oceania or the Oceanic area. And so yeah, I think that this is actually going to be one of the longer lasting battle royales. I don't think that this is going to be one of the big battle royales unless just something amazing happens, but who knows. And this game is free, so pretty much anybody can try it out if you are in North America or Asia. But one last thing to talk about before I actually end off this video, and that's about the developer and publisher of this game, Tencent. I really want to know what is going on over at Tencent. If you don't know who that is, which I would be very surprised if you play Battle Royales, Tencent are the people that kind of funded Bluehole into making and upgrading PUBG, and they also own 40% of Epic Games, which currently makes and distributes Fortnite. Uh, Tencent also was completely responsible for the PUBG mobile port, and they also have their hands in a few other companies that deal with battle royales. So this is their first like in-house made battle royale, which was actually originally a different game called Europa, which is why you'll see that around the game world and on clothes and stuff inside of Ring of Elysium. But it was originally called Europa, and it was a like straight up PUBG clone. And from like rumors and stuff that we've heard, because Tencent is very tight-lipped about this, Europa was being built like at the beginning of when PUBG was kind of like hitting its stride, but before Tencent bought into Bluehole. And then Tencent bought into Bluehole, they stopped working on Europa because they had PUBG here. So they didn't need a PUBG clone, they had PUBG itself. And then Fortnite came out, and it was doing great. It's still doing great. It's currently like the number one battle royale right now. And so they got all that, but then they decided to change Europa into Ring of Elysium. It had a closed, or like a somewhat closed beta. You could download it from from its site, but only if you were playing in Thailand or Indonesia, because that's the only places that they had servers. You could technically get an English patch for it, but it definitely wasn't like Tencent approved. But they had that, and during that time, which was in June, July, is when it ended. June, July of 2018 is when that kind of stuff ended. And at that point, it was still a PUBG clone. And then from July up till now, they switched it over to, instead of being a PUBG clone, into the whole Arctic theme and all of that. And I really just want to know what kind of angle Tencent's playing. Like, we've heard different murmurings that the Chinese government was going to clamp down on external games from like foreign countries, which would exclude both PUBG and Fortnite. So if that comes to pass, then there's a reason why Ring of Elysium was made. But if that doesn't end up being a thing, then I really have to wonder why PUBG, or why Tencent is like not dealing with PUBG or Fortnite anymore and is making their own game, which, like I said, just really doesn't make sense to me, because they already have two huge cash cows that are bringing in tons of money. Like, we've seen the millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that these two games have brought in. So why are they making their own small free-to-play battle royale to compete with both of their other big properties? So really, that's just an open-ended question. We won't find out for really a long time, if ever, why they decide to make this. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That is all that I have to say about Ring of Elysium right now. Potentially, when it has a full release, I might say some more about it. But as of now, that is it. So, as always, I'm Ryan from Blue Gaming, and I will see you guys in the next one.